I think we're going to start right now. There's some confusion about 7 or 7:30 start, so we're going to get some of the preliminaries out of the way before we get into our speakers. Generally tonight, you should have a handout if you need it, so that you can utilize that. We're going to acknowledge and welcome some people at the start before we get into our different coaches' speeches, and hopefully they'll also be able to provide you with a voiceover or a PowerPoint or Tucker, whatever you're using, that communicates what D1, D2, and D3 are doing. We also tonight are videoing in the back, so that that will go on YouTube, and each one of the clubs that are sponsoring this event tonight hopefully will be able to put it on their website, so that if you want to refer to it or look at it at some future point, then it'll serve as a good opportunity to review what we talked about, what the coaches talked about, and just serve as a reminder about the recruiting process. So tonight, my name is E.B. Helm. I run the Dukes program, and we've always had a college night here at Harrington. But this is a unique night in a number of respects. In number one, we're combining and collaborating with a number of other local clubs. So I just want to acknowledge Peter Lawrence. I think Brian Churchy is also here. Brian, will you stand up real quick, please? It's the first time that I know of, certainly locally, maybe even nationally, that clubs have collaborated as a group to have a college recruiting night seminar. So, guys, thank you so much. Peter, for all you've done. Brian, thank you for coming and bringing your group out with us tonight as well. Thanks. Second item that makes this a little unique is that in the past when we've spoken, we've always had one coach. Typically it's been a D1 coach. So this year we're very, very fortunate that we have a D1 and Coach Petramala, a D2 and Coach Terranova, and a D3 and Coach Durkin, so that each one of them can provide a unique perspective in terms of the recruiting process for their division, and they will do that exhaustively. At the end, we will open it up for a Q&A out of the audience and any call-ins that we as club coaches might get that can communicate a little bit more about what the questions may or may not be. The last thing that I want to communicate as well is a part of this college night, we decided to make it a voluntary charity where contributions could go to the HEADSTRONG Foundation and Nick's House, which is local down in Swarthmore. So whether it be tonight or another time when we communicate a better mechanism of how you may want to contribute, then each one of the clubs will be doing that on their website and also communicating through Philly LACROSSE. I don't see Tom Ferguson, he's the AD here at Harrington, nor do I see the coaches, Joe Proud and Chris Mandarino, so at least they'll know that we thank them for allowing us to use this facility and allowing us to have the opportunity to communicate to you folks about the recruiting process. What I'd like to do briefly is introduce a couple of other people, and I'm going to start with Pat and let Pat speak briefly about Nick's House and the voluntary contribution status, which I'm not at all clear on, but that I'm sure he will illuminate a little bit more for me. So please welcome Pat. Thank you.
I want to just take a moment to acknowledge all of the clubs that thought enough about the organization to extend the invitation. purpose of tonight is to provide you all with a better understanding of how to navigate the landscape of the competitive lacrosse side of recruiting. And who better to speak on those type of things. And you have an incredible opportunity tonight to interact with some of the best lacrosse coaches in the country. And it's rather fitting that that is the purpose of tonight. And I hope that all of you take advantage of that by asking questions and being engaged and taking notes, because for many of you, it is it's cloudy waters. This is a very important time in your life. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And, there's a lot of different topics that, that might be on the docket, including the affordability of school. What does that look like for you all? What type of school are you looking for? And what type of career do you want to have? So I've always found these type of events to be very beneficial. And so, while navigating the recruiting process with clarity is important, as is navigating a cancer journey with clarity, and that's kind of what the HEADSTRONG Foundation is committed to. We're an organization that has deep roots in the sport. This organization was started by my younger brother at 19 years old. He was a Division I lacrosse player at Hofstra University, and he was terminally diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma just shortly into his sophomore year from a hospital bed. Created the organization with the purpose of helping families navigate cancer with quality of life and normalcy, and providing services intended to ease the burden. Over the past 11 years, unfortunately my brother did pass away, but he left behind this incredible legacy. And over the past 11 years, this organization has grown and emerged nationally as a resource to families. We've been able to assist more than 15,000 families across the country. And it's a cause that's very, very close to the hearts of a lot of college programs, professional athletes, all the way down to youth kids. It's kind of interesting that the mechanism behind HEADSTRONG from its inception was shoelaces. And that just so happens to be the item that we were kind of woven within the fabric of lacrosse in that way. So, with regards to the organization, Coach Helen spoke a little bit about Nick's house. Back when my brother was fighting, we met a family getting out of their car while their daughter was undergoing a bone marrow transplant, and it really started to shed light on the challenges that families were facing. The fact that a family would literally live out of a parking garage in order to assure their loved one that they can undergo the best possible treatment and care was just mind-blowing. And during a conversation with my father, another dad said, my daughter's receiving treatment on the 6th floor and the University of Pennsylvania Hospital. We're taking shifts. We're living out of a car. And so my mother and father, we were very blessed to be 15 minutes from the medical center at the University of Pennsylvania. So they provided a home for this family for the duration of their treatment. They welcomed them into our house. In 2011, we opened up our first Link's house. And in that time, we were at 100% occupancy very quickly. And then we ran into an interesting situation. We turned out to more families than we could accommodate. And so this desire to build upon Nick's vision through Nick's house became very, very important. And what we realized in the greater Philadelphia region, we're so lucky to have such a concentration of world-class medical facilities, clinical trials, trained oncologists, and all types of different innovative therapies that was bringing a national and international patient base. But the staggering thing was what people would actually forego because of the feasibility of a relocation. And you think about not everyone has access to the best possible treatments and things like that. So the focus of the HEADSTRONG Foundation has really been centered around helping families assure them the best possible treatments by tackling the things that would historically prevent them from undergoing treatments. And you'd be shocked to know how many families at a certain point hit that financial wall and they unfortunately forgo treatment or they sacrifice, okay? In the case of my brother, we understood first and foremost, we knew what it was like to swallow our pride and ask for help. But on the flip side of that coin, we're also displaced to Bethesda, Maryland. So we also knew what the realities of having to relocate to pursue something that would potentially save your life. Now, as I had mentioned, the opening of Nick's House was an incredible project that over the past 2 2 years came to life. We opened last February, and in that time, we've welcomed families from across the country. We've been at 100% occupancy, and again, we're in a very interesting situation. So we're providing more than 3,000 nights of complimentary housing each year to folks that are from all over the country. And they're coming here for all types of things. In fact, just this week, we welcomed a new family dealing with tongue cancer. But we've literally seen it all. Back, our very first guest was a 21-year-old with brain cancer from Pittsburgh. We've actually housed a gentleman who was the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers from 83 to 87, a guy by the name of Neil Gorse. And it's interesting, healthcare has really played an interesting situation in things. But we're handling things with positivity. We're providing a support system for families while they're so far away from home. And more importantly, we're providing an opportunity for them to put the world-class treatments on their radar without having to incur the expenses. And this was literally conceived from a hospital bed, from a lacrosse player who just had a vision of uniting a sport. Like I said, I want to thank you guys. There's some great ways to get involved. There's a Go Line initiative that allows players to pledge a statistic during their season and use that as a mechanism for securing contributions. If you go to headstrong.org, the concept's called Go Line. It's a neat, fun, interactive way, and I think the coaches will speak to the importance of standing out on a resume. I'm sure they can show you how to write a resume. I'm sure they can talk about what exactly they look for, but I think the one important thing that you should all take from tonight is the fact that one of the things that the coaches that will speak before you are looking for are game changers. They're looking for guys that are going to do dynamic things on and off the playing field. And I think service and a commitment to being part of things bigger than yourself is where it starts. So anyway, thank you so much, and I appreciate you.
Thanks, Pat. So that's the second piece. The first piece we talked about was the collaboration of club programs locally joining to have this night. The second piece was to talk about the Headstrong Foundation and that Nick's house, which is right down here in Swarthmore. So very, very cool that Headstrong could be here and have a presence and allow us to do more than just have a college recruiting night. So the third piece, obviously, is what we're primarily here for, and that is the college coaches talks and communication. We've talked about the fact that if you're already into the process, then this will serve as a good opportunity to build on that. And if you're brand new and learning about the recruiting process, then get your pen and paper out and start to begin to build your understanding of just what this college recruiting process is. After each coach speaks, we are going to open it up to a Q&A, so you'll be able to ask any questions you want after all three coaches have the opportunity to speak. The first coach that is going to speak, I like to call him a friend, but he's really a legend. He's the head coach at Johns Hopkins State Petramala. He needs no real introduction. Probably, and maybe still is, known as the best defenseman of all time, unless it's the guy sitting next to him up here now who's pushing a little bit. But Coach Petramala runs a first-rate program. He is kind enough to come up and talk and deliver the D1 recruiting process. So I know you don't want to hear me. Let's bring Coach Petramala up to talk.
I'm not the most computer savvy, so I just need to make sure we're squared away here. I guess I'm not. I'll just do it this way. Okay. So, number one, EB, thank you so much for having me. Thanks to the Dukes Lacrosse Club and NXT. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to address all of you on what turns out to be a pretty challenging topic. Something that's supposed to be one of the more exciting moments in a young athlete's life can turn out to be quite challenging and quite frankly pretty stressful. So my hope was to be able to come up tonight and shed some light, bring some clarity, and help you better understand the recruiting process at the Division I level. I think what you're going to find very quickly is Division I, II, and III are extraordinarily different. Division I being the most different. So tonight, when Tucker and Coach are able to answer questions from the audience, I'm unable to do that. So Coach is going to actually ask some questions that the clubs have put together. This whole recruiting process has changed really dramatically in the last few years, and in particular in the last year. We went from a process that I think was very broken to one that at least is a little bit better, has a little bit more clarity to it, and I think a little bit more sanity to it. I think the process that we had in place before was one that was not beneficial to coaches, not beneficial to institutions, and certainly, and most importantly, I don't think it was beneficial to the athletes and their families. So just a couple of things to explain why. So we've changed and we've come into a new period of recruiting where things can't start for a prospective student athlete till September 1 of their junior year. Prior to this rule change was quite frankly like the Wild Wild West, and it was you could recruit 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders. You could take commitments from pretty much anyone. And I have the good fortune of having twin boys that I love to death. Like you, they're the apple of Dad's eye, and they happen to be 9th graders. And the challenge for me right now is to get them to pick their underwear up from behind a bathroom door after they get out of the shower. So to think they're going to make a collegiate decision, it just doesn't go hand in hand. So what we did is we put together a little bit of like a fact sheet for you, and I'll go through this, and as we go, I'll branch off into different directions. But the first thing you need to understand about the recruiting process now, and I would explain the previous recruiting process more, but quite frankly, it doesn't play a role for you guys anymore. So it's better to focus on what's happening right now. So the first thing it's really important to understand is a college coach at the Division I level cannot have any kind of contact with a prospective student athlete before September 1 of their junior year. So that does not mean we cannot go out and evaluate. Division I college coaches can go evaluate an 8th grader, a 9th grader, a 10th grader, 12th grader, whatever they'd like, but they are not allowed to have contact. So what does contact mean? Well, we can't make any phone calls. We can't accept any phone calls. We're not allowed to have any type of communication via mail, via text, via email, via FaceTime. We are not allowed to have any contact with that prospective student athlete other than if they happen to call, we're permitted to say, listen, what year are you? I'm sorry, we're unable to have a conversation with you until after September 1 of your junior year. We can't say, hey, we really like you, we'll talk to you on September 1. We unfortunately have to be very generic. We're not permitted to have third-party conversations. So we are not allowed to reach out to your club coach and say, please reach out to Tucker Durkin and just let Tucker know we're very interested, we'll be in touch on September 1. We're not permitted to do that. Now, in my heart of hearts, I think that rule's probably being a little challenged these days. But nonetheless, we're not permitted to do that. So again, coaches cannot engage in conversations with prospective student athlete, whether it's initiated by us or by them. Club coaches, high school coaches, or any other individuals are not permitted to play third party in communication between college coaches. The exceptions for communication prior to September 1 are pretty simple. If you are at a camp, a recruiting showcase or event, and the coach is working that, you can talk to, you can talk to the prospect, but it cannot be about their recruitment. So, for instance, Tucker comes to a camp, I'm working with him. I'm permitted to have interaction with him. I'm permitted to have a conversation with him. It's normal day-to-day stuff, but I am not permitted to say to Tucker, hey, by the way, you're a heck of a player, and we'd really like to have you look at our school. We'd love to have you and your family down for a visit. We're not able to do that until September 1 of the junior year. A prospective student athlete can say hello in passing. We call it a bump. So I happen to know Tucker. I happen to coach him at a camp, and he happens to walk by me at a tournament. We are permitted to be cordial, and Tucker, how are you? Nice to see you, Coach. Good to see you. After that, you really can't do much more. So it's as simple as hello. So now we get to, when can you do something? When can this process really begin? Well, the process can begin long before September 1, and I think it's important that you all need to understand that. The process can begin before September 1. The communication cannot. So that does not mean that a coach is not at a tournament watching ninth graders. It does not mean you are not being evaluated by a coach in 10th grade. It does not mean that a coach is not calling a club coach to learn more about you, okay? What you can't do is pass on messages through, again, that third party. But we are permitted by NCAA rules to evaluate. And quite frankly, I would be remiss if I told you we weren't doing that. You know, coaches are preparers. You know, what we do is we spend our livelihood preparing for the next game, preparing for the next year, preparing for the next recruiting cycle. And when you do that, well, you want to prepare and know all the guys in the next class, and then the next class. We're all looking to get a leg up on our competition, so we are out evaluating. There are many myths that you need to be aware of, all right? The first one is we call it cocktail conversation. And you're out at the local cocktail party, and a conversation breaks out, and inevitably someone says, my son got a full scholarship. That is more a myth than anything. Very few Division I players get a full scholarship, okay? So just so you're aware, just because a school is a scholarship institution, it does not mean they necessarily have the full complement of scholarships. So what I mean by that is a school by NCAA rules is permitted to give out 12.6 scholarships. That's basically 12 and a half scholarships for the full team. So that is not 12.6 per year. That is 12.6 for whatever the size of your roster may be. So if your roster is 40, it's 12 and a half scholarships for 40 guys. I would venture to say, and I'm not permitted to offer exactly what Johns Hopkins is like, but I would venture to say that most institutions are doing their very best to take a piece here and there and distribute those scholarship dollars as widely as they can. So whether that's a room here, board here, a quarter tuition here, a half tuition there, college coaches are doing as much as they can basically to rob Peter to pay Paul and get as much bang for their buck as they can. So when you think about it from a business standpoint, with 12.6 scholarships, it's really challenging if you hand out one full scholarship to one student athlete. That means you have 11.6 left for the other, let's just say it's 40, the other 39 guys. So it does present challenges. That does not mean it doesn't happen, but quite frankly, you'll often hear that so-and-so is on a full scholarship. Chances are that's probably not the case. If you're talking about basketball, and football. Those sports do give out full scholarships, and most of those programs are fully funded and offer a full scholarship to every student athlete that's on their team. So unlike football and basketball, the lacrosse roster is littered with young men that are either paying their own way, getting some kind of partial athletic scholarship on some kind of merit aid, meaning academic aid, or they're on some level of need-based aid, which is financial aid through the institution and has absolutely nothing to do with your ability as a player. Does that make sense to everybody? Good. I'm verbally committed to. Everybody thinks that means you are officially committed. Unfortunately, we live in an era now, we live in a society where our word is not our bond anymore. My dad brought me up to be a person that when you make a commitment, you keep a commitment. Unfortunately, things are not quite that way in today's day and age. And I would tell you, things are not that way on both sides of the fence, not just from the student athletes, but from the coaches as well at times now. So when you hear someone who is in 11th grade, and we'll stick with the new rules, in 11th grade is committed, what they have done is they've given a coach a verbal commitment. If a young man wanted to give 5 coaches a verbal commitment, he could give 5 coaches a verbal commitment. Not that it would mean very much, but he could. It is a non-binding action. So the only time a young man is officially committed is when he signs his national letter of intent, when he signs his scholarship papers, or he signs his offer of admissions at that institution. That is when you're officially committed, and I mean officially. Other than that, it is a verbal agreement that a student athlete has every right to back out of if he feels like or she feels like they made a bad choice. What you found in the process most recently is because so many decisions in the old process were being made in just after 8th grade. Now think about that, just after 8th grade, in 9th grade or in 10th grade. Well, the difference between an 8th grader and an 11th grader is vast. What you're interested in is very different. What's important to you is very different. Your priorities are very different. What you're looking for in a school may be very different. So you've seen a lot of what we now call decommitments. And you've seen that this year since the rule has changed. You've seen a lot of that. Young men that made decisions 2 years ago under the old rules when coaches were able to have conversations with student athletes before September 1 of the junior year. You're finding that some of those guys have decided to change their mind. That is legal. It is also legal for a coach to say, we've changed our mind, you haven't developed like we thought, you haven't done your job academically. They have every right to walk away. Now, more times than not, if a coach is doing that on multiple occasions, that's probably like committing recruiting suicide, because that word gets around and that coach's word is not very valuable. Whereas with a student athlete, it happens, the process happens once and basically you move on. So I hope that's clear. I have to commit to school A, B, C, or D. I have to commit. You don't have to do anything, okay? This is your process. It is really important that you own this process. It is important that as young men, you are involved in this process and that this is not mom and dad's process. Now, I should preface that. Mom and dad should be involved in this process and they should have an opinion. It's important, okay? More times than not, they're paying for this. But their experience is very valuable. But what I would say is I think it's really important for a young man or a young woman that are being recruited at the Division I level to own their process, meaning they need to be involved in it. They need to ask questions. Everything shouldn't run through mom and dad. There are certain topics such as scholarship. If a family would like to have mom and dad have that initial conversation, that's certainly understandable. But when a young man wants to know about major, wants to know about minors, wants to know about where they might fit in their program and what kind of vision a coach might have for them, I think that's more than pertinent and more than appropriate for them to be involved in. Don't feel pressure. Now, I just told you something that's really hard to do. That's like putting the pizza in front of me and say, "Don't get hungry." Just not happening. I'm gonna open that pizza box and have some of it. It's hard not to, and it's interesting when you sit in a car filled with young men, which I now have the opportunity to do. You hear lots of talk, and you hear so-and-so's going there, and so-and-so's going here, and I heard he got an offer, and God, he doesn't know what to do. He's such and such a school is putting pressure on him. Let me offer this to you first and foremost. I don't think it's inappropriate for a coach to ask for an answer. This is not Johns Hopkins speaking. This is just my personal opinion. I don't think it's inappropriate for a coach to say, "Listen, we're going to make you an offer, and we'd certainly like to have an answer in 2 weeks." It's like a job. You're going to get a job. You apply for a job. You're being offered a specific salary, and your boss or your potential boss says, "We would love to have you. We'd like to hire you for a 4-year contract, and we'd like to offer you this as a salary. But we're going to need to know by next week, because if not, we've got to move forward and look at other candidates." That's basically what a college coach is doing. I don't have a problem with it. I didn't necessarily say I agree with it or would do it, but I want to just make clear that I don't have a problem with that, okay? However, I don't think a young man should succumb or make a choice for a college based off of pressure. And I don't believe a college coach, I don't think it's in our best interest to pressure a young man and ask him to make a decision based off of pressure and not based off of passion or love or fit for an institution. But you don't need to make a decision. I would encourage you not to make a decision till you're ready to make a decision. Now, that may mean losing an opportunity at an institution that's ready to either put a scholarship offer on the table or put an admission slot on the table. You might lose that. That's okay. You may lose that, but better to lose that than make the wrong decision. So I would encourage you to do your best not to feel pressure and to make a decision when you are ready and prepared to do that. A checklist, so a couple of things. How can I handle this process? How do I handle getting my name out there? So first is create a highlight film, okay? You're not gonna get seen by every coach. It's just not possible, okay? Every coach isn't gonna be everywhere. You may not be at the tournament of the coach that the coach you wanna play for is at. There may be a school you're really interested in and you're not at the tournaments that they've gone to. So what do? Create a highlight film, your name, your contact information, your statistics. You don't need to give them your statistics from 3rd grade. Give them the pertinent statistics, which is high school. Those are the pertinent statistics, okay? Give them your high school and your club team. Give them your club coach and your high school coach's contact information. You're giving them the pertinent information that they need. Give them your number on the film. I can't tell you how many times a college coach will receive a film and it'll say, I hope you'll watch my film. I'm very interested in your school. And the coach got to sit there and figure out what number is he. Sometimes you might find another guy that you're interested in thinking that that's him. So give the coach your number. All right? Here's the important one. The highlight film shouldn't be more than 1 to 3 minutes. A 10-minute film is not a highlight film. That's a small documentary. Okay? I'm just going to offer this. Your music. It's awesome. Pick music that will catch a coach's attention and not offend him. So, music with inappropriate words, curse words. Quite frankly, is a quick turn off, and I'm going to tell you, I turn it on, I hear it, I turn it right off. Doesn't matter to me. I don't want it. Okay? If we don't have time to do it the right way, I'm not sure that's a young man that, a college coach would be interested in looking at. okay? Grab their attention, okay? Don't be afraid to put a play on where you fell down, where you got knocked down, where you made a mistake. We're all smart enough to know that there is no perfect player out there. But we would love to know, if you're a guy that gets the ball taken away, do you turn around and ride it back? Or if you take a bad shot and it's saved, do you hustle to the hole? There's something innately positive from a coach's standpoint to see something like that in a young man that's willing to say, hey, I'm not perfect, but here's what I do when things don't go well. It gives you a sense for their character, their toughness, and how they play the game. Okay? If once you've done that, you've sent that film out, okay, send it to whoever you're interested in. You can send it on a DVD, although times are quite frankly changing. You can send huddle clips. You can send clips from YouTube. There are plenty of different ways to do it. And then you tell the coach, I'm very interested in your school. Here's my name, here's my contact information, and here's my video. Thanks, I hope to hear from you soon. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. College coaches get hundreds of those. Now, a good college coach worth his weight in gold is going to sift through them all. Whether he has assistants sift through it first and bring the better ones to him, they're going to take the time to watch it. And I would tell you that college coaches have recruited young men off of video, off of film, off of tape. Okay, it's that's the initial contact. That may just be the first time. Now, afterwards, if you find out that the coach is interested, you could send a full game film. Say, Coach, I don't know if you were interested. Here's a full game film. Gets to see you play for your high school or your club. Nothing wrong with that. Draft an email and send it to the coaches. You can send it in a letter or you can send it in an email. Either or is fine. Clearly, we communicate differently now, and snail mail is not necessarily the way to go. But I will tell you a quick story about a young man that caught the attention of another coach. He was a goalie a hockey goalie and a lacrosse goalie. And he sent a film, and back then they were DVDs, and just a simple letter with his contact information and academic, and there was one more letter that was the cover letter. And I'm gonna substitute Tucker's name in it, but it said, think goalie, think Durkin. Plain and simple. Think goalie, think Durkin. It was hockey highlights of him in the goal and lacrosse highlights in the goal. That kid got recruited by that coach. That is an honest to God true story that I was told by another coach. So it happens. Don't be afraid, okay? Visit as many schools as you can while you're traveling. So you all go to these tournaments. You don't need a college coach to show you around a campus. You don't need a college coach to walk around a campus and know if you like it or you don't. Is it too small or is it too big? Is it just right or is it just wrong? Whichever it may be. So while you're in Baltimore, while you're in Pennsylvania, while you're in upstate New York, there are colleges all over the place that play great lacrosse that are great academic institutions. Take the time and go take a look at those places while you're in that region. Okay, some things you need to know from the academic side of things. All right, so familiarize yourself with your guidance counselor and the process for obtaining transcripts. So college coaches, these days things are so privatized and everybody's so careful, it becomes more challenging unless you have really good relationship with an institution for a college coach to pick up the phone and say, listen, I need EB's transcript, could you please send that to me? Normally a coach can't do that. They won't do that unless, number one, the student athlete has signed a release or gone in with parental permission to say, if so-and-so calls, you have my permission to send my transcript to them. But college coaches are going to want those. So make sure you've had contact with your guidance counselor and let them know that, hey, I'm interested in being recruited. There's some schools that may be reaching out. I hope if they do, here's my permission to provide them with my transcript. Or be proactive, and when you send those videos, you can send a copy of your transcript with it. Now, when you do that, you may pique a coach's interest quickly based off your academics, or you may quickly have him look at the transcript before he looks at the film and say, he's not in our wheelhouse, we can't get him in, we move on. So that is part of the process if you do that. Register with the NCAA Eligibility Clearinghouse. Does anybody not know what that is? Show of hands if you don't know what it is. Great, I'm glad we brought it up then. So in order to be eligible to play Division I athletics, okay, when you graduate high school, you are required to provide the NCAA Clearinghouse with a copy, an official copy basically, or a reported score from a testing place. So SAT, ACT, those testing centers, the NCAA Clearinghouse has to have your scores from that entity. Not from you, not on your transcript, but from that reporting entity. The second thing they need to have is they need to have your transcript upon graduation. What that does is it allows them to review it and make sure that you are a qualifier, meaning you qualify for Division I athletics based off your SATs and grades. And number two, it makes sure that you've met the core curriculum that is required to play Division I sports. So to be a Division I athlete, when you graduate high school, you have to have a certain number of English courses, a certain number of math courses, science courses, those things. So you have to meet that criteria. Every high school knows what those are. Every guidance counselor should know what that is. And the easiest way to do this is you can go in, when you're in 9th grade, you should sign up. Just sign up as soon as you can. So if you haven't, I'd recommend doing it. You can go in, your guidance counselor, and get a form, or you can go online to the NCAA Initial Eligibility Clearinghouse, and you can sign up. And what you get is you get a PIN number. And that basically PIN number is your number, and it will allow your college, whichever one you go to track you. The other thing is, in order to take an official visit, which now you could take in your junior year or your senior year, I'll repeat that. You can take an official visit, meaning an expense-paid visit by the school, the college, in your junior or senior year, okay? You can't take, you're only allowed 5 of those. You can't take 5 in the junior year and 5 more in the senior year. You can't do that. You get 5. All right, but in order to take one of those, you have to have registered with the NCAA Clearinghouse. So let me offer you this recommendation. When you get to September 1 of your junior year, if you're a pretty talented player, the pace is going to move fast. Coaches are going to call September 1, and they're going to want you to schedule a visit. And they may want you to schedule one within the week or within 2 weeks, because they want to get you to campus as quickly as they can, and they want to get you there before the other schools get you. You want to have had done all of this prior to that time so that you're not being reactive, you've been proactive, and you can say, I can visit, I have all my stuff with the NCAA Clearinghouse, here's all my transcript and SAT information. Does that make sense to everybody? Good. Take standardized testing. So you can take PSATs in 9th grade. My sons just did it yesterday. They were as miserable as their dad was when I took mine way back when. So it's glad to see that hasn't changed with young people. Take them. Take the SAT. Take the ACT. Take whatever you can take. It's better to take it, figure out where you are, get a sense for how you test, and then you can seek help if you need it, tutoring if you need it, but you should take it and you should have that on record. You don't have to report it to any school. You can just get the scores yourself and have them in case a college coach is interested and would like to know. Some things you need to know, all right? Who are you? Who do you want to be? You want to win a national championship? Well, history has told us there's only a certain number of schools that are doing that, okay? If you want to play for a conference championship, well, you need to look at the teams that are playing for conference championships. If you want to play at the highest level of Division I, then you need to look at those schools. If you're interested in small schools, big schools, you got to know who you are, what you want to be, and what you're looking for. What are you interested in? You're not choosing college just to play lacrosse. Most people will tell you, you choose just for academics. I don't agree with that, because this lacrosse is a part of your life. So if it's a part of your life, it needs to be part of the choice. That said, academics come first. You don't want to choose a school where you think you can win a championship, but you can't get a major that you're looking for. Inevitably, there is pro lacrosse, and clearly pro lacrosse has changed in the last week and a half with the advent of a new league, but I'm not sure everyone is making their living playing lacrosse, so you need to find a school that meets your academic interests. Where would you like to be? North, south, warm, cold, Midwest, west, doesn't matter, it's your preference, but you gotta ask yourself those questions. You know, why are you interested in each school on your list? There's gotta be reasons. Fill out a sheet, pros and cons. Go visit those schools. Visit them before you get to the September 1 of your junior year time, so that if these coaches call, you have an idea. I went to Campus A. I liked it. They called, I'm interested. I went to Campus B. Wow, it was way too small or way too big for me. I have no interest. Then you can be honest with the coach and let them know when they reach out. Take action. So on September 1, first comes, entertain anyone that calls. Don't be rude. Take every call. If you're there, take the calls. Mom and dad shouldn't take the calls. You should take the calls. 2, if you are not there, a coach texts you, then you should return his correspondence or communication the same way he has communicated with you. So if coach texts you and you're not there right away, you should return that text. If he calls you, you should return that phone call, okay? If you've already made a decision as to these are my 5 schools, or this is the school I want to go to and I heard from them and that's where I'm going, be honest. Coaches talk, okay? Be honest. There's no need to play a game, okay? No need for coaches to do it, no need for recruits to do it. The best policy is to be honest and upfront and forthright. If you're interested in the school, tell them you're interested. If you're not, don't worry about hurting their feelings. Just tell them you're not interested, okay? You're not gonna hurt their feelings. They may be disappointed, but you're not gonna hurt their feelings, okay? If a school that you don't know much about contacts you, listen. You never know what you might learn. After a call or 2, you may not be interested. After a visit, you might not, but it doesn't hurt to listen and to learn, okay? I mentioned earlier you get 5 visits. You don't have to take all 5. If you find a place that you fall in love with, you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with making a decision there. Some would tell you, make sure you go somewhere else. To each his own there. I would say it's good to have a comparison, a big and a small, a north and a south, a high level Division I, maybe a little bit lower. It doesn't hurt to have at least some diversity there. Whether you can get a phone call or not, if you don't get a phone call, don't panic. You can reach out to the coach and express interest. You can have your club coach. You can have your high school coach. Just reach out and say, listen, Tucker Durkin is interested in your school. Don't know if you had a chance to watch him or you have any interest, but he has interest in your school. What are your thoughts? And they'll talk to the coach and the coach will get back to you. We didn't put it in here, but there's one really important thing. Be realistic. If you're getting phone calls from all Division III schools and no Division I schools, chances are you're a Division III lacrosse player. There's nothing wrong with that. There are great Division III programs. There are great Division III coaches, okay? Division I isn't for everybody. Division III isn't for everybody. Division II isn't for everybody. So I would tell you, if you're not sure, then look around. But when you're being contacted by coaches, be realistic. If you're getting contacted by, the top 5 schools in the country, then you're probably a very, high caliber player. If you're getting recruited by mid-majors, then chances are that's where you are at that moment. Doesn't mean you can't become a better player, doesn't mean you can't play at a higher level. You need to understand that different conferences have different rules. Ivies don't offer scholarships. Big Ten schools, ACC schools, Patriot League schools, SoCon schools all offer scholarships. Timetables are different at different places. When informing other coaches of your decision, always be cordial, okay? Coaches would rather not find out from someone else. They'd rather hear from you. So if a coach has been kind enough to pick up the phone and contact you and express interest, if you decide you're going somewhere else, again, it's not about hurting their feelings. It's about just being forthright and honest. These are people you're going to see down the road at some point in time. Just pick up the phone and call and just say, Coach, thank you so much. I've made a decision to go to school A. I really appreciate everything you did for me. Thanks, and I hope you'll respect my decision. Any coach worth his weight in gold is going to tell you, one, he's disappointed, because if he doesn't tell you he's disappointed, he really wasn't interested. And number two, he's going to wish you good luck and tell you he hopes everything goes well for you. The coach that tells you you're making a mistake, you know, you're going to the wrong place, you should have come here, you know right away as the coach you didn't want to play for and you made a good decision. Just a couple of quick things and I'll step down here. Not all jerseys and television. You need to understand what you're getting yourselves into. That's important. So another area where Division I, II, and III are very different. Division I, it's not a part-time job. We put part-time, it's a full-time job. So you got strength and conditioning for an hour, film for a half hour, pre and post practice treatments are probably an hour. You got study halls, you have extra work to improve, and then you have practice. It is a full-time job. You know, I heard a football player on, it was from Oklahoma, and said, I have two jobs. I'm here at Oklahoma. I'm here to be a student. I'm here to be a football player. I'm not here to be anything else. And while I believe there is a social component of it and an important component in college, a lot of your time is going to be spent playing lacrosse, practicing lacrosse on your own, going to school, and studying on your own. It's going to take up a lot of your time. It's a lot of work. A lot of guys get to the Division I level and realize, oh my God, this is more than I expected. And I am being as forthright as I can be with you right now. I'd rather scare you a little bit than have you walk into it blind. It's a lot. When I went to college, I was overwhelmed. Just what you deem practicing hard, more times than not, is nothing close to practicing hard. What you deem you're able to accomplish, I'm going to say most college coaches think they can get you to accomplish more. So it is a lot of work. At the Division III level, it's work, but it may be a bit different. There are certain schools in Division III, the NESCACs, that actually can't touch their guys for a certain part of the year. With Division I, you're around it basically from the end of August when you get to school till hopefully Memorial Day when the national championship is won and over. You know, you host recruits, you meet with recruits, you do interviews. You are a representative of three entities, basically. Your family, well, four I should say. Your family, your institution, your team, and yourself. And what you'll find that is really important, and I'm sure this goes for all of our levels, your choices impact everyone. So a bad choice impacts me, could impact my family. It impacts you, your teammates, your family. So it's important to know what you're getting into here. We talked a little bit about this. So leave no stone unturned. You know, work to find the right place. Look for the special feeling. I tend to think most guys know. I really do. You go, it's not everybody's like that, but I think a lot of guys leave and they go, you have that feeling in your belly. Don't be afraid to follow that feeling. I think it's important. Make the best choice, because the choice you're making isn't just for 40 years, it's for life. Any program worth its weight in gold, at least at the Division I level, is going to be with you for the rest of your life. Those doors are going to continue to open when you're 50, 60. There's a place for everyone. Division III has great lacrosse. Division II has great lacrosse. There are guys having great experiences at those places. Division I is not for everybody, nor is 2 or 3 for everybody. You got to find the right fit. And remember this, we all make mistakes. We live with mistakes every day in our lives. So if you make a mistake in this process, there's always a chance to redo it. I'm not saying I encourage that. So by saying that, that means you got to work hard to do your homework and do this well. So I hope that's what you were looking for. Okay?
Thank you.
Tuck? Okay.
It was awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
We're going to have Coach Terry Over come up. I think Coach Petronella did an amazing job of giving you guys so much great information. There's obviously subtle differences, as he spoke to, between Division I, 2, and 3. And so we're fortunate to have Coach Terry Over, who's the head coach at Chestnut Hill College. And he's going to speak to some of those subtleties. Coach.
This one.
Yeah. Right. Here's where the coaches are different. He's smarter. He uses his phone, and I got to use this shiny computer.
Well, Coach Petronella did a very thorough job. And before I dive in a little bit, does anyone in the audience want to tell me something you know about Division II? Anything, even however basic you think it is.
Between 1 and 3.
Raise your hand real quick. I don't know.
Between 1 and 3.
Yes, 1, 2, and 3. Yes.
At least not a team, so the 3 division. Is that correct?
No, but anything else? Thank you, Nico. We got another D3 coach in the back of the room from Immaculata. Anybody else? Anything you know about Division II? All right. Now, that's, I got to tell you, I'm in my own world, right, over doing my job at a Division II institution, and it kind of dawned on me as I'm sitting here that, and I'm reminded that we're kind of the forgotten division, right, because we were, for some time, the smallest of the 3. We're now just approaching 80 teams, so we passed Division I, so now they're the smallest. When about 10 years ago, though, there were about 40 teams. Okay, so there's been tremendous growth at this level. You know, and I think part of it is you have Division I, you have name brand recognition, you have big institutions, and then in Division III you have well over 200 schools, almost 250 schools, so everybody knows somebody who plays D3 lacrosse or D3 sports somewhere. Can anyone name another D2 institution close by? Westchester. Westchester had men's lacrosse until about around 2000. Coach Cullinan went over to St. Joseph's. All right, but they were a top 10 program at the Division II level before they discontinued that in the late 90s or right around 2000. Talked about growth, but quite frankly, Division II is Division I's little brother. All right, everything the coach said about time commitment, about recruiting restrictions and things like that are the same for us with a few exceptions. That's what I was doing on my phone, Coach, is I'm just piggybacking your presentation here, okay? So first and foremost, it's a lesser spotlight, right? Chestnut Hill College, all right, versus Notre Dame, okay? Poll 100 people, 100 of them are gonna have heard of Notre Dame. Half of one person will have heard of Chestnut Hill College, right? Okay? For us, instead of September 1 of junior year, I don't know why it's this way, but this is the way it is. For me, it's June 15th before your junior year. I don't know why I get 2.5 more months to talk to you, because if Coach Petronella wants to talk to you, you're not really going to talk to me. That's fine, okay? But I know there are some Division II institutions out there that are verbally committing guys before September 1st of their junior year, okay? That's just the way it is. Certainly, if you're a guy with Division I aspirations, like Coach said, you should not be feeling the pressure, all right, and be making the right choice. Core GPA, Coach alluded to. Core GPA, that's your English, I think he may have already rattled this off, English, math, science, social studies, foreign language. It's a cumulative core of 2.3 in Division I. It's a cumulative core of 2.2 in Division II. SAT scores, eligibility center, all of that stuff applies to Division II as well. Official visits, you can only take 5 to Division I institutions. You may take an unlimited number to Division II institutions. Not an unlimited number at the same institution, it's 1 per institution, but you may visit as many Division II institutions on official visits as you would like. They do not take away from your 5 to Division Is. So, a little bit about, the Division II landscape in that growth from 40 to almost 80 schools now. A lot of it has been in non-traditional areas. 6 teams, about 6 teams in Florida now that weren't there 10 years ago. There's teams in Missouri, there's teams in Colorado, there's teams in California. Obviously the majority in the Mid-Atlantic here in the Northeast 10 Conference, the East Coast Conference, and teams like that. How many of you saw the Division II National Championship game last year? Okay. A couple people, all right. Merrimack played St. Leo. It's a team from Massachusetts playing against a team from Florida. Traditional powers in the Division II landscape include a team from South Carolina called Limestone. All right, so it's a little bit of a different, it's a little bit of a more diverse landscape of schools at this level. And I think why do players choose Division II? A lot of times they come from 2 worlds, right? So we're between Division I, someone over here said between Division I and Division III. Right? That's what our players are. There are lower end Division I prospects that are looking to be bigger fish in smaller ponds, looking for a chance rather than just be a roster guy at an NEC or a lower CAA or something like that school and want a chance to make an impact early in their career. And there are a lot of Division III guys that are just seeking greater structure. Because like Coach said, our guys, they're capped at 4 hours a day of lacrosse activities. So you might be in the weight room at 8, you might have a film session at noon, you'll be in the training room at 2, you'll have practice at 3. And that's your life. And your off season is 8 hours, after fall ball. It's the same thing, the 8-hour periods, the small groups, the weightlifting year round. All that kind of stuff pertains to our levels as well. So it's a time commitment. Like Coach said, he wasn't trying to scare you. When I give tours, most of what I'm trying to drive home is, this is going to be a lifestyle for you. I'm going to be around. Coach Petro's deeply involved in his guys' lives throughout the year. That's not to say D3 coaches aren't, but we kind of govern your actions all year round. We're allowed to pop into the weight room, pop into study halls. Right? Drop in on all sorts of stuff and organize things for you throughout the year. Let me see, and also something about Division II, we also have obviously athletic scholarships. Just like Coach laid out, you're going to see various institutions, some that are fully funded. For us, instead of 12.6, it's 10.8. All right, again, break that up however you want. And you have some institutions, just like in Division I, some working without athletic-based scholarships, some working with very little, some working with the full amount. So you piece that financial picture together at the Division II level through, a lot of times, Division III recruiting process combined with Division I. You may be receiving or being offered some athletic compensation, but you may also be entitled to merit-based scholarships at that institution. Or financial aid process aid at that institution. So it kind of comes from both worlds. So the biggest thing, I think, in speaking United as a Division II guy, is in this area, there's not a lot of attention kind of placed on this level, but there are more NLL guys, and not MLL, but NLL guys. I can't speak for MLL, it might be the case, but there's more D2 guys in the NLL than Division III, even though there were for a long time only 40 or 50 schools. And then a lot of that has to do with the influx of Canadian players coming to the States and looking for athletic aid to play at the Division II level. So, and so the biggest thing I can kind of just leave you with is, we're all different. We don't get quite as many practices in the fall as Division I. We get like 24, we're capped at like 24 or so, and then they use their full 45-day window. You can get up to like 30. There's some different things on how many days off at certain times of the year I have to give them, but at the end of the day, you're looking for a similar time commitment. And along those lines, it's not just you individually, but also what you're expecting of your teammates. And that's, lifting is not optional. Lifting is not a captain's lift. Lifting is what you do if you're a member of this program, right? It's what you do. You don't show up to that and you're neglecting your responsibilities as a player. So that's probably the biggest thing I can leave you with for Division II. Coach Petro, great job. All right.
I'm not going to use the computer. No, you're good. Thanks, Evie. Thanks, Coach and Coach P. Thrilled to be out here and as a representative of Division III lacrosse. Having played for Coach Petro at Johns Hopkins and eventually transitioning to Division III head coach, I kind of have a unique experience in that I played for a top Division I program where you're totally entrenched as a student athlete, in an environment that's very demanding, and transition to a coach at the Division III level. To be honest, I didn't know anything about really Division III lacrosse as I got going. So talk a little bit about just kind of that perspective as a head coach at Division III level, what that experience is like, and how it might differ from that Division I experience, what a year in the life of an athlete looks like for a Division III player, some of the rules and regulations that you guys should be aware of as you're getting recruited by a Division III school, and then kind of some things I want to throw in, what I think that coaches value about players, some advice about being proactive, and using this process for you potentially as a vehicle to get into the best school possible. That was great advice that I received when I was going through the process. And I'll talk a little bit about your visit and kind of what I think is important there. So the Division III experience, right? Different than Division I and Division II. As a Division III athlete, you get a mix of being both a student and an athlete and having creative control over your schedule for a portion of the year. So as both coaches explained throughout the fall, winter, and spring, as Division I or Division II athlete, you have practices, you have lifts, film sessions, rehab. It's very demanding. I can tell you as a guy that went through it not that long ago, it's a full-time job. It's 100% a full-time job. A lot of structure, which personally I really enjoyed having that structure, knowing when I'm going to wake up every morning, knowing I'm going to class from this time. Didn't have a lot of gaps in my schedule. As a Division III athlete, your year looks like something like this. You have between 3 and 4 weeks in the fall where you'll have fall ball. If a coach elects to choose 3 weeks, he can have 12 practices during the fall. And this is going to happen either September, October, or November. If he chooses 3 weeks, you can now start a week earlier in the spring. If the coach decides 4 weeks, now you're starting a week later in the spring. The start date in the spring is 16 weeks from your conference championship. So that's happening most of the time towards the end of January is when you start up in the spring. The largest difference is the winter, right? So you finish as a Division III athlete, you have that fall ball of either 3 or 4 weeks, which will account for 12 or 16 practices, so 4 a week. And then from that time, which a lot of times is going to be the end of September, middle of October, whenever your coach decides to fit those fall practices in, you do not have any mandatory team events, okay? As a coach, I can't schedule meetings, I can't schedule practices, workouts, right? I can't, take attendance at a lift that a captain organizes, right? So you have creative control over your schedule to lift, to do whatever you want to do, to be a student, right? To handle your free time however you want from potentially the end of September to January. That right there is by far the biggest difference in terms of scheduling. Now, with the fall schedule of that 3 or 4 weeks, it's probably going to be a little bit different than your Division I or Division II experience. So you're going to go out to practice for 2 hours, so you get 2 hours allocated time to practice during the fall, and your coach can divide that however he sees fit, right? For me, we're going out and we're practicing for 2 hours, because I think that the skill aspect was more important to me. The coach might decide we're going to practice for an hour, we're going to lift for an hour, but it's not, a fall experience where you're waking up at 6 a.m., you're lifting first thing, and then you're coming back and watching film or going to practice. It's just not that environment. So that's kind of how the school year looks like in terms of a fall, and then obviously the main difference is the winter, right? That is your time to be a student, to focus on what you want to focus on, socialize how you see fit. You don't get that experience really, anything like that at Division I level, and from what I heard from Coach at Division II level as well. I will say that it's important to note, right, that when the spring hits, so you're starting maybe the middle of January, right, that environment, depending on what program you go to, what coach you have, is going to be very similar to a Division I or II experience in that, assuming that your coach has an environment where things are demanding and expectations are high, you're practicing 6 days a week for 2 hours at least, and you're going to have films, you're going to have lifts, and you're going to have expectations to be fully immersed in the sport for the spring, which I found out my first year was a massive adjustment for a lot of guys, right? So I started in January of 2016, and we started 3 weeks later. Right, so as a new coach at Bryn College, we're a small liberal arts school. There's 300 people that go to the school. And I was telling Coach earlier, when I first took the job, I asked for the office closest to the cafeteria because we had 10 guys on the team. So I was walking in the cafeteria, recruiting guys out of lunch. But it was a major wake-up call for these guys that I wanted 6 days a week of what I was used to. It's just what I was used to, and it's what I was allowed to do by Division III rules. So depending on what program you attend, right, the philosophy of the coach, right, that spring experience in Division III lacrosse is going to be similar to the Division I and Division II experience, outside of, depending on the program, the bright lights and the TV contracts and, all the gear. Also, I just wanted to touch on a little bit of the Division III stigma that I think exists. So I came, like I said, I played at Hopkins. I graduated in 2013, and I played at a really high level at a great school, obviously, and we played the best teams in the country. And I accepted this job with Bryn and not really knowing what to expect in terms of talent, in terms of work ethic, in terms of other programs, and I will say with 100% certainty, there are great Division III lacrosse players. There are great Division III coaches. There are great Division III programs and colleges. And there's kind of a stigma that's existed, in my opinion, that Division III kind of gets the short end of the stick, but it's, it's about your selection, right? It's about what's the best fit for you. But depending on where you go, what program you're a part of, right, what coach you're playing under, you can get a great experience Division III West. You can get a great experience Division III West. And there's players in Division III without a shadow of a doubt that can play Division I, without a doubt. So if you think that going to a Division III institution, while you're not going to have, 40 or 50 guys that are high school All-Americans, you're going to have a few on pretty much every team I've seen that can play at the Division I level, without a doubt. Okay, so Division III rules and regulations, which are pretty open. Coach mentioned the Wild Wild West a couple years ago at Division I. That's pretty similar to what Division III. What Division III, is like in terms of rules and regulations. So I could call a freshman on my way home tonight and there's no violation, and set up a visit for next week. Same thing with the sophomore. He can contact me and I can answer him and we can set up a visit. So there's unlimited contact between freshman year and senior year while you're in high school, between coaches and yourself. And that's via email, via phone, text message. The only restriction that I have as a Division III coach is I cannot leave campus to go see him. So that visit has to occur on campus starting after your sophomore year. So I can talk back and forth via email, text message, but I can't go to his house when he's a freshman or a sophomore and do a visit there. Yeah, so there's no dead periods in Division III. There's no quiet periods. I think it's probably done in an effort by the NCAA to kind of level the playing field a little bit. The Division III schools, we don't have as large of a budget as Division I and II, so they don't put a lot of restrictions on contacting student athletes at the high school level. And you can take official visits at Division III schools. A lot of Division III schools don't really do them, but they start at January 1st of your junior year. Okay, so a little bit about what college coaches want to know about you. I'll say, having little experience here as a head coach, or 3 years of experience as a head coach, and just knowing other coaches and having great mentors like Coach here and others. When I hear about a kid, right? When I hear about either a high school coach reaching out to me, or maybe a high school player reaches out to me first, or I see him play, I want to talk to their high school coach, I want to talk to their club coach, and the first two things I want to know is what type of kid he is, and how are his grades. Okay, from there, I may or may not ask their high school coach or their club coach about his game, because I've probably already seen him, and no disrespect, but I've probably seen him play and feel good about it. But just important for you guys to understand from a reputation perspective, right? From a brand perspective, your brand, right? You want to come in with a clean slate. You don't want to have a college coach contacting your high school coach, and your high school coach telling that college coach that you're not coachable, or that you're goofing around in the back of lines, or that whatever the case may be, right? You want to have a clean slate, and you want that high school coach to say, yeah, he's one of the hardest working guys on my team, he's a great kid, he's easy to coach, and you hear that as a college coach, and that gets you excited, right? That gets you excited to learn more about him. And then obviously with respect to the grades, just don't limit yourself, right? So there's 250 Division III schools, and Coach said there was almost 80 Division II schools, and how many D1? 72. So there's tons of schools out there, right? And it's about finding the best fit for you. Okay, it's about finding the place that's going to set you up for success in the future, and a place that you believe in, a coach you believe in, right? Don't limit yourself by not doing your job in the classroom. That would just be my advice, right? So you guys should be working as hard as you can, so come junior year, come senior year, in selection time, you can't go to a school. It's not the case that you can't go to a school because your academic profile is not there, right? That might be a great fit for you. Yeah, two more things real quick here on that subject. One is just, Coach touched on it, skill development, right? A lot of times, you guys are trying to figure out where you want to go, or maybe when you commit. You're feeling good about your selection, you're excited about where you're headed. I just urge you guys to really, take an investment in your game when it comes to lacrosse, right? So I was a guy that, I didn't really play as a freshman in high school, didn't really play as a sophomore in high school. Wasn't heavily recruited come January or come September 1st, my junior year. But I was able to keep kind of working hard and keep getting better as a lacrosse player. Midway through my junior year, I still wasn't getting recruited by any big-time Division I programs. I ended up working hard, having a good spring my junior year of high school, and then there was a lot of schools that were interested, right? So Coach touched on a little bit, but just having that, the recruiting process might start as a freshman or sophomore, and that's going to change, right? Based on how much work you put in, based on how much you develop as a player. I think it's just important for you guys to understand from a skill perspective to just keep working hard. Also on the subject of being a good person and having a clean record, I think we're in a really unique time here, especially for you guys in high school with respect to social media. And all the different platforms that you guys have at your fingertips between class, during class, hopefully not, but I would just be really, really conscious of what you're putting out there, whether it's on Snapchat or Instagram. I have a lot of friends in the coaching world that, unfortunately have had incidents with recruits that have sent a Snapchat and it was something inappropriate. It got back to this person or this person, and now they're not going to the school of their dreams, right? So, general rule of thumb, this came from my mom, right? Probably about 5 or 10 years ago when Facebook came out, or I guess it's longer than that, was don't put anything on a public forum that I don't want her to see, right? Or your grandma. Okay, I think that's a good rule, and that includes Snapchat or any videos that might get passed around, because it would just not be a good thing to send a video that would impact your life dramatically. Okay, so be proactive. Last couple things here. So here was my philosophy going through the recruiting process, and I think it still holds true. And it's a little bit different than Coach P's, but I would make a list of schools, okay? I would make a list of 10 schools that you would consider safety schools, okay? 10 schools that you can get into that institution on your own merit, that after conversations with either your high school or club coach, you can play there, right? You're talented enough at this time to play there, and you can get in there on your own merit, and they might interest you, okay? So those are 10 safety schools. I would create a list of 10 more schools that academically and lacrosse-wise are probably a good level for you, okay? Not a safety school, but a good level for you, and kind of where maybe your club coach, high school coach, whoever else is involved, could see you fit, could see you at, okay? So maybe that's Division 1, 2, or 3, but 10 schools that you'd really like to attend, okay? And then lastly, I'd create a list of 10 reach schools that maybe academically you're not there yet. Maybe lacrosse-wise you're not there yet, okay? But who's to say that, in another year you won't be, okay? Because I did this when I was a sophomore, and one of my reach schools was Johns Hopkins, and that's where I went. So, don't sell yourself short, right? That's why I would put those reach schools out there, and I'd email every coach. I would, as Coach mentioned, introduce yourself, your position, club program, contact information, and I would have a video. I think that's obviously a good thing right now. I would have somebody screen that video, meaning like a high school coach, club coach that knows what they're talking about, knows the game, and is making sure that you're showcasing good highlights. I've gotten some film of highlight films that are kind of showcasing poor play, and you definitely don't want to do that. And then obviously say where you're planning on playing and what tournaments you're planning on participating in, so they know they can come and watch you. Again, Coach mentioned it. Don't ignore anybody. Right? Answer every coach. They're not going to be offended. And you would be surprised. There's not a ton of turnover, but assistant coach at one place, say school A, that you're not interested in, you don't answer them, you disrespect them, ends up at school B that you really want to go to, right? You might not have that opportunity because of how you treated him based on, or at the different school. Also, coaches talk, right? Lacrosse is a tight-knit community, and you know, end of the day, you just want to, treat everybody with respect. Last two things here, I've said that a couple times. Using lacrosse as a vehicle for your future, I think that is a good way to look at your selection, right? I really do think it's important to align yourself with a program, especially at the division, at every level, right? Your coach is going to play a really big part of your experience, a really big part, okay? And you want to get to know the coach as well as he wants to get to know you. And I really think it's important to align yourself with obviously a school, okay, a program, and a coach, right, that is in line with where you want to be, with what you want to get out of college, okay, whatever that is, all right? When you go on the visit, does he talk about team culture? If not, ask him about team culture, okay? I think it's really important to, almost interview the coach as much as he's getting to know you. You want to know about him, you want to get comfortable with that program. The reality is you're going to spend a tremendous amount of time with this guy, right? And obviously your other teammates you get to know on visits, but you want to go to a program, you want to feel really good about the coach that you're going to, okay? Obviously the school, everybody talks about you want to go to pick the right school academically, lacrosse-wise. Well, there's a good chance you're going to be with that coach for 4 years. So you want to really, make sure that you get to know him. Last thing, visits. My opinion, I wouldn't make a decision without visiting 3 schools. I'd also probably recommend taking an overnight visit, get to know the team culture, get to know some of the guys on the team. Parents, when you show up on a visit, this is just my opinion, I don't know if the other coaches feel the same way, there's no need to tell the coach how good your son is. He's probably already seen him play, and I don't think that you're going to tell him something that he doesn't know, but that's just one thing I thought I'd include in here. That's it. Cool. I don't think so.
We're still live here. Coach Durkin, very, very understated. Very, very understated. Went to LaSalle, went to Hopkins. If you didn't watch TV late at night, he was on Team USA that won the World Championships. Congratulations on her. So we're going to end now with the Q&A. Hopefully you've gotten a good prospectus from D1, D2, D3. As I'm standing over here on my phone, I've got a zillion questions, but we decided that Coach Lawrence is going to walk with a microphone, and anybody that has questions in here, we're going to you first, so that if you have questions for coaches, you can ask any question you want through Coach Lawrence on his microphone to Coach Terranova, Coach Durkin. But from a compliance standpoint, anything that you want to know on D1 through Coach Petramala will have to come through the mouthpiece of Coach Lawrence. So Pete, if you're going to walk around, let's just start right now, and we'll go around. Coaches, we'll leave this microphone up here for you. Be ready to pass it.
So for multi-sport athletes, what's your policy on that? Like, what do you guys think about when they're going through their other sports season?
Are you asking if we allow them to play 2 sports in college? Okay. So at Bryn Acton, where I am currently, we're a small school, as I explained, and I am okay with guys running cross country, or we've had 1 or 2 guys play soccer, so long as it's not a winter sport that interferes with the lacrosse season. I'm okay with it. We've had a few guys on the golf team, so I don't have any issues with it.
Got a couple guys doing it, a couple right now doing it, and a lot of it is a conversation about what their role is with each team. Again, because of the time commitment, it's a question of, okay, if you're a captain on the soccer team and you're an upperclassman and you just are going to be riding the bench for the lacrosse team, well, you might want to stick with the team that you need to lead to big things. And the same in the other role. But that said, I'm thrilled when guys are able to contribute to more than one program. I think it's awesome. I mean, it's a highlight for me to be able to recruit guys that play more than one sport. And if they're competitive enough to do both at that level, that's fine by me. I'm thrilled by that. We spend a lot of time going out to watch them play anyway and support the other teams on campus. So it's great to have one of our guys out there.
Answer that last one? No. Okay.
I'd be interested to hear from each of the coaches if what your feeling is about boys that are freshmen and sophomores attending showcases, if they're worthwhile or not.
Can you frame that? Can you frame that for Coach Petronella, please? Coach Lawrence?
Yep, so the question is, and I have a list of questions that I came up with as well, that I thought would help. And so the question is, younger high school players attending these various individual showcases that are offered in the fall and summer.
I think there's great merit to all of them. I think we're in an age right now where kids are doing too much. I really do. I think we're getting a tired product when they get to us sometimes because they've done so much. But I do think there's great value in these showcases. I do think the opportunity to go compete against other quality and talented players. I do think there is value in that. I do think the opportunity to evaluate young men in that environment is worthwhile. So I would be very much for it. I would just say that I think it's important to be selective and not feel like you have to do everything, because in doing everything, rather than enhancing, as Tucker used the word, your brand, or impressing, you actually could do the exact opposite when you're tired and you've done too much, and you could hurt your cause rather than help it.
Yes, I didn't mention this, but generally Division III schools aren't looking at all at freshmen or sophomores. So at a freshman showcase or a sophomore showcase, I'd be really surprised if you saw any Division III schools there. Maybe a few. So.
I think it's like Coach said about being selective. Coach P said probably have a certain amount of money you want to spend in a given summer, and you want to make sure you're going to the right events, and you're going to a certain number of club tournaments, and then you kind of have to decide prospect days and institutions that would be your dream school, or individual showcases where you're hopefully going to be seen by 50 plus college coaches. So I would lean on your club coaches for a lot of that to know which individual showcases are going to be the best attended. Because they're a little bit cyclical. Things change every few years as far as where we all want to be, which sidelines we all want to be on, to try to see the best players. And so I'd lean on guys like Coach Law and Coach Helm as far as saying, hey, this has been the place to be the last couple summers, so if that's something that's important to you, go to this event or be at this event. That's the place to be.
So I think in order to make this easy for everybody and make sure we stay compliant, which again, I think you're clearly seeing the difference between Division 1, 2, and 3 right now. I have a list of questions here that I put together and that Coach and I talked about. So I can go off of these, answer one or two, and then if you want to ask the other coaches one or two, let them answer. That way, I think we can involve everybody and make sure we stay compliant, if that makes sense.
I think a good one to highlight, Coach, that's on the list that we came up with.
Just give me a number.
Is number 9.
Okay.
I think a lot of these kids have been going out to prospects days this fall.
So what does communication look and sound like from top prospects or someone who's in the middle of the pack? Great. This is a great question. It's different. So let's lay it out there. If you're a top prospect, number one, you're going to have a sense for that because you're going to see what's around you on the field. When you go to a field, and every field you tend to be on, there's coaches, you know, at the highest level of Division I following you around. You know, it's not really hard, or following your team around, it's not really hard to understand, hey, they're here to see me or here to see us play. That's one. Two is the level of contact and communication. If you are a top prospect, you're going to be contacted on September 1. Plain and simple. If you're that kind of player, you're going to be contacted by, you know, the Division I coaches on September 1. It's not going to be just an email. It's not going to be just a letter. It's going to be a phone call, an email, and a letter. That's just kind of the nature of it. Now, every school has its process and is a little bit different. If you're not one of those guys, and you don't hear from a coach September 1, 2, 3, but maybe sometime, you know, that week or a little bit later, that means they're interested in you. They wouldn't be contacting you if they weren't interested in you, but the level of interest may not be the same as it is for some other student athletes. So one of the hard things, as I mentioned earlier, is to be realistic. You know, and if you're getting those phone calls and those letters and emails September 1, then you clearly know where you stand. If you're not getting contacted at all, then you may have to do some legwork and reach out, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. And if you're not hearing that first night or second night or third night, well, that probably means the first wave of calls went out, second wave of calls took place, and now they're getting to the other guys. And it doesn't mean they're not interested, doesn't mean there's not a spot for you, doesn't mean you won't be a very good player at that level. It just means at that moment, that's where you may fall in their recruiting process. That can change dramatically based off young men making decisions and either going to that school or going to another school. For the other coaches?
Yeah, I think Coach nailed it pretty good from a Division III side. I just try to be as honest as possible with guys. Let them know where I saw them or how I heard about them, where I watched them, and let them know my interest level. Maybe it's I want to watch you play again. Maybe it's that I'm all in. I think you'd be a great member of the program and a guy that could make an impact early. Or maybe it's a guy that I say I want to keep watching and see you keep developing and let you know from there. So I think at least from my side, I'm just trying to be as honest as possible, and then hopefully they have a picture of where they fit in my program, in the program.
Coach Durden mentioned, you're interviewing the coach on your visits, and so if they're a trustworthy, person that you evaluate that, then, you can trust that what they're telling you is, they may say you're a top prospect, or they may, tell you, I want to see you play again, or, you have what it takes, but, or they may say, you're in our key group, or whatever the case may be. So hopefully if you're interviewing the right coaches, and you can trust them at their word, and they'll be honest with you.
Okay, so I'm just grabbing off, again, this list of questions. So here's one. Does it hurt my recruiting chances if I play other sports in high school? I would absolutely encourage everybody in this room to play multiple sports. I wouldn't say it's a must, but college coaches love it. We love guys that have a background in a different sport. The translation of football and the toughness and the work ethic it takes to play football translates to all divisions in lacrosse. Basketball, being a point guard, understanding field vision, leadership, running an offense, a rotation defensively, translates to all divisions of lacrosse. So, I don't believe it hurts. I quite frankly think when you reach out to a young man and a college coach says, so what are you doing this fall? And he says, nothing. And you say, okay, what are you doing this winter? And he says, nothing. He's just a full-time lacrosse player. Chances are he's not going to develop quite the way another guy is who hasn't played lacrosse full-time. He's not going to have some of those innate qualities that other young man or young lady has developed through those other sports.
Yeah, I was a football, basketball, lacrosse player until gave up basketball, 11th grade, and just the vernacular, like there are things that I'll say that my football coach said a certain way, or that my basketball coach said a certain way, and certain concepts, just like Coach said, rotating in defense, like I feel like basketball is decades, ahead of us, and we're finally catching up to playing defense the way, you could put basketball players in a box and have them figure out how to cover an extra guy, a lot quicker than it seems like, lacrosse players. And so I love having guys that are coming from various experiences, and along with what Coach said, if you're just a lacrosse guy year round, why aren't you playing other sports? There's guys that are great lacrosse players or great at anything. Like if you're a really great lacrosse player, you're probably also really great at monkey in the middle and tag and like other things like that. And you're probably pretty good. There should be some other sport out there that has caught your attention because you're having success at it.
You want to get somebody else from the audience, please?
Everybody else has a question?
Down front,
Right
a
here.
couple of them.
Quick question. I have two D1 players under the old rule, and now I have a freshman coming up. Do you foresee, because I'm seeing juniors struggling right now, do you foresee them changing the timeline from that September 1st? Because you've got kids hitting their junior year, which is important for academics, and they're all of a sudden getting all of these requests to go to campus visits. It's interfering with school. It almost seems like it would make more sense for the June timeframe, where then they could have the summer to sit there and do some of these visits and do showcases and things like that, rather than interfering with academics in the fall.
I gotta let Tucker answer that.
Yeah.
But you know the answer.
Right. Yeah. I personally do not see them changing it.
It took so long to get here,
Yeah, it took
the old rule
the
was
process
in place
just kind of
for so
switched.
long. And it wasn't until the women's lacrosse coaches really pushed, the rules to the finish line, and the men, adopted along with the women. And so I think that's just a tough situation, for families and for kids, but I don't foresee the rules changing. The NCAA tends to move a lot like a glacier, and so to get them to, change the rules to September 1st was a long time in the making. I know there was another question someone else had.
All three coaches touched on multi-sport athletes and extracurricular activities and academics. What are some key things that, a player reaches out to a coach and says, here's my film, here's my GPA, my class rank, my extracurricular activities, other sports. What are some things that make recruits stand out amongst other players? Some things that make coaches say, wow, he's a good kid, I would like him on my team.
From a lacrosse side, or kind of just overall?
Just overall.
Yeah, really good question. So overall, I would say, I want to get to know the recruit. So one way to stick out is, after spending a day with you on campus and having conversations about what you're interested in, what you're looking at your college experience. I'm able to learn a lot from you and kind of learn about your maturity level, learn about your priorities, potentially learn about your work ethic. Things like that, are very impressive to me, right? When a kid comes in and he comes prepared with questions on his visit, that you can tell, he's maybe done a little research on the school. Those are things that stick out from, a personality perspective to me. From the lacrosse side, my answer might be different than Coach Petro's and Terranova's, but I'm looking for guys that are athletic, guys that, maybe, started lacrosse a little bit later or still have a lot of room to grow, but have a natural athleticism to them that, I think myself and the coaches can really work with. I would probably go after that guy more than the guy that might be a little bit more skilled. Those are a couple of things.
Yeah, I think it's probably just human nature that if something's going to stick out, it's probably something that's in likeness to some experience or something that, you know, the coach is having, because we get these emails all the time. So it's really going to be different coach to coach, but sharing as much of yourself as you can is great. You know, if it's, oh, you know, I'm involved in FCA, and the coach is involved in FCA, or if it's, you know, you're Eagle Scout and they're an Eagle Scout, or, you know, just things like that. I think you probably can't predetermine, because if there was a secret to it, you can't just like, you know, then everyone would be saying this sentence, which would just get every coach to hone in on it. It's more, the coach is looking for clones a lot of times. You're looking for people that fit your program. The coaches set the culture of the program, so we're trying to recruit little clones of ourselves. So something in what you said resonates with something about us, and that's going to get us excited.
I can't answer that question, but what I am looking for is the next Tucker Durkin, that's for sure. So here's what I came up with. What are appropriate questions for players to ask when on a campus or on the phone with a coach? So I think that's really important. Number one, I think, as I said earlier, the student athlete needs to own this process. And one of the worst things, well, let me hit the rewind button. One of the most important things about recruiting is relationship development. That is what recruiting is all about. It's about developing a relationship. That is what the success of your team is all about, is creating relationships. You don't know what button to push with a young man unless you know about it. They don't care until they know you care. And so the relationship component is really important. So I think one of the things that really is important to keep in mind is to take some time and try to get to know the head coach. Give yourself an opportunity to get to know him. Give him an opportunity to get to know you. In regards to what do you ask? Well, coach, can you tell me why you're interested in me? You know, think about this. You meet a lovely young lady, or a lovely young lady meets a handsome fella. You'd like to know why they like you, not the fact that they just like you. We live in a world of whys now. And in the world of millennials, the question why is the most pertinent question. So you want to know, why do you like me? Coach, can you tell me about the majors that you have? I'm interested in A, B, C, and D. Well, what if I don't know what I'm interested in, Coach? How does that play out here? How do you help me figure out what it is I want to do with my life? Is there a process for doing that? What kind of academic support do you offer your student athletes? Is there a study hall? Are there tutorial services? Do those tutorial services cost me, or are those paid for by the athletic department? You know, I love the question, you know, Coach, what kind of style do you play? I kind of chuckle and I laugh at that one. Coaches are really good at selling, you know, ice to Eskimos, so to speak. Style of play doesn't mean anything. Because 2 years from then, when they get a different recruiting class, their style of play can change, and you can either fit it better or not fit it at all and be obsolete. So that's an unimportant question, but, you know, why do you like me? Coach, how do you see me fitting? I wouldn't ask Coach, am I going to come and start? No coach wants to hear that. It's something that's earned and I give it. You know, Coach, can you tell me about your team culture? Can you tell me about the upperclassmen? Are they close with your freshmen? What's a day in the life of a student here? You know, are there courses all day long? Is there a lot of free time? You know, what kind of alumni networking or professional development do you provide? You know, are there opportunities for internships? What's the connection with the alumni? Those are all very pertinent questions, and those are all questions mom and dad don't need to ask. And then the two elephants in the room that at some point in time you need to talk about is finances and admissions. Everybody's financial situation is different. And I would say, don't be afraid to have that conversation. Don't be afraid to say, Coach, I wanted to let you know I'm very interested in your school. I'm really excited. I've enjoyed this so far. Here's a couple things that are important to me. You know, academic interest, academic support, and one of the things that is going to play a role in this, Coach, is finances. For my family, I have three brothers and sisters behind me that my family needs to take into account as we move forward. Coach, where would I be right now in regards to admissions? You know, am I admissible now? If I'm not, what do I have to do to be admissible? And, you know, what's your timetable? What are you looking for from me, Coach? How quickly are you looking to make this decision on me? And I can share with you how quickly I'm looking to make this decision for a college. So I hope all those make sense.
Coach, just to follow up to that, that was, you know, on the questions. I hear sometimes, you know, you use the example of, here's someone who might need some financial assistance. Knowing you only have 12.6 scholarships or 10.8, this is less than the Division III question. But let's just say I'm from a family and I'm going to disclose to you that finances are not going to be a factor. Is that something that parents should disclose to college coaches, knowing, hey, the academic fits great, the lacrosse fits great, but I want you to know the final decision is not going to come down to whether I get a scholarship or not, because my family is blessed enough that whether I get the scholarship or not, if this is the right fit, I can afford to go to school here. Does that impact you in any way?
Sure. I'll let Coach answer this, but I'll just give a quick piece. Coaches can't tell you what you can and can't afford. I would just encourage you not to make a decision solely based on finances. Clearly, finances play a role in today's day and age, but there are a lot of ways to make things work. One of which is your son taking some ownership for the process and for the choice. So if he really wants to go there, there's nothing holding him back from getting institutional loans. There's nothing holding him back from actually going to a private lending institution and doing that, if it's that important. Now again, it may not be feasible, and that may be a larger part of the process, but certainly I think it's important to make the initial decision on, is it the right place? Then, can we find a way to make this work?
I think that's something that, yeah, if there's a spot that you really want, you know, that can be helpful. I know from, you know, working at a Patriot League institution where, you know, most of the programs are not fully funded. That's very helpful in the conversation because it also affects your admissions. You know, being a non-need applicant is different than being someone who's applying for financial aid. It's just kind of the nature of the game. So that's not something you necessarily have to say, but if that's something that you're willing to, then sharing that can change, you know, your status as far as when they're trying to sort through putting the class together when it's all said and done. Sorry, I forgot there was something.
I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience. I know we're at about 9 o'clock now.
How about one more?
Yep.
So, as we end this, I think maybe the most important takeaway from this is, how do you guys help yourselves? Or maybe better still, how do you not hurt yourself? You know, and, you know, at every level of college, at every level of education, and college coaches are educators, we're teachers, okay? Our goal, you know, I used to believe a coach's job was to motivate. I don't believe that anymore. I believe a coach's job is, and a leader's job is to inspire hope and trust. And if you can do those things, great things can happen. For you young guys that are headed into this process, you can really help yourself and you can really hurt yourself. So Tucker mentioned a few things, and for me, there's a great example of what you want to be. Okay, I was blessed to work with him for 4 years, to call him a friend now, and to say I'm proud to see him up here and stand next to him would be the understatement of the night for me. But you're looking for, your character matters. So what's character? Can any young guy in here tell me what character matters? I'm allowed to actually ask you guys questions. So can any young guy tell me what character is? Come on, why don't you step up and take a bullet here and just give it a shot? Yes, sir. You can stand up, just yell it out to me. What's character? You're the man. You're the man. You've been in our locker room. Character is what you do when no one's watching. And you are on your own far more than you are with anyone else. So you've got to have great character. You have a platform now, fellas, that we didn't have growing up, and these guys had, and it's really become a much larger platform than ever before, and a much larger platform in our sport. Did you know Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram are all a poor man's background check? Did you know that? Did you know when you're going for an internship in college and they want to know something about you? Well, sure, more times than not, your coach is going to speak positively about you. And then when they go to your Facebook page or your Twitter page and all they see is red cups, we all know what a red cup means. You know, and maybe you're drinking iced tea or lemonade, chances probably are not. That matters. How you portray women on your Instagram and Twitter pages matters. College campuses are an all-time high alert with how the sexes interact, and appropriately so. Okay, so how you present yourself on social media, one wrong word, and it's over. College coaches follow their high school recruits on social media. I'm gonna say that one more time. College coaches follow high school athletes on social media. You may not think it happens in lacrosse, it does. You hear about it happening all the time in football and basketball. One wrong picture, one wrong word, one wrong innuendo or insinuation can cost you your career. Your schooling matters. You've got to go to school and you've got to do well. 9th grade matters. Coaches are looking at it. Schools are looking at it. They're looking for reasons to separate people. They're equal. He's the better student. Thank you. That's less of a headache for me later. They're equal. He's got more upside because he plays 2 sports or hasn't played lacrosse as long. I'm going to take him. There are lots of ways where you can help yourself or hurt yourself. And they're all in the choices that you make. Your friends matter. So every coach picks up the phone and calls the club coach. Okay? They probably call the club coach first these days because when the recruiting process starts, the club coach has just been with that young man over the summer and is going to be with him in November before the high school coach has. Sometimes you've not been on the varsity. What kind of young man is he? Is he a good kid? Is he a good teammate? You gotta figure out what a good teammate is. You know, does he practice hard? Is he selfish? What are his parents like? It matters. I'm telling you, it matters. Does he play other sports? How does he do in school? Has he gotten in any trouble? What kind of people does he hang around with? Well, coach, he's a great kid, but he just tends to be around a rough crowd. You are who you associate with. It matters. So I would implore you, as we kind of end this, I don't mean to end it on a negative note, you have a chance to hurt yourself, but you have really got a chance to help yourself. And coaches love good young men. They want that first and foremost. I don't care what any coach says. He doesn't want to coach a pain in the tail. In our sport, you can take a good young man, a great young man that's a good player, and you can make him a great player. He wasn't a great player coming out of high school. I'm telling you that right now, I have no problem saying it to you. He'd be the first to admit it. But he was a phenomenal young man that made himself a great player. He could do that because of the kind of person he is. Hard to take a great player that's not a good person and make him a good person. So just remember that as you move forward. You have your choices can either really hurt you, but also can really help you moving forward as you navigate this process. You want as many people as you can speaking your praises, not saying negative things about you.
We've heard so many great messages tonight, and I think just a final couple thoughts from me, and then I'll turn it over to EB, and then we can give the coaches a round of applause. Part of the reason we wanted to do this and do it with the timing of right now, obviously, everybody's about to embark on this kind of November tour up until Thanksgiving, and so hopefully this is a motivator, and you guys walk away with a couple of action steps that you can take, and you've heard a lot of great messages, you know, from the coaches that I think could impact what you do in recruiting, your focus around your academics, your approach to practice. Coach Petronella talked, you know, about highlight videos. I handed out a sample resume. You heard the coach's message about fit. On the back side of the resume is just like 25 questions that are good things to ask yourself as a family conversation, you know, to figure out what is the right fit for you. As we heard, there's so many options. And, you know, to find, is the Division I level the right level? Is it the Division II? Or is it the Division III? And again, that's why we wanted to have, you know, a panel of coaches so you could all better understand, you know, what your options are and help you find the right fit. But I would just encourage you as you're going into, you know, November is, it's nice to be able to have that highlight video now and that resume that you can attach to that email. If you were emailing, you know, Coach Durkin, and it's, hey, on this first weekend in November, I'm going to be playing with this club, this is my jersey number, here's my schedule, here's where I'm going to be. Or you were emailing Coach Terranova, and it's like, again, you have the ability to attach that film, attach your resume. You, again, are just representing you and your family, that you're organized, that you understand how the process works, and therefore you're making it easier for the coaches to recruit you. You know, when you don't attach your schedule, there is no highlight film, there is no resume, you're just making it more challenging for them. And so, again, if you're hearing the message, be proactive, get yourself organized, and realize that this coming November, you know, from now until Thanksgiving, is a window, it's an opportunity, it's small, and you want to go out and play your best on the field, but also realize there's like the back end stuff that also helps expedite and make the process work. And so again, you know, we have a video of this. NLV, who I think is one of the best in the business, they're here filming this tonight. So like Evie said, we'll have copies of that. If you don't have a highlight film, they're an organization that does that for people. So that would be something, again, to think about. And again, I appreciate everybody coming out, collaborating with a bunch of different clubs, which I think is something unique. And we wanted to make happen. So Evie, thank you for that, and for the other people that, you know, supported it. And obviously HEADSTRONG as well. And so that's my 2 cents. So thank you.
That's enough 2 cents for everybody, I think. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Give the coaches a round of applause. Thank you so much. Coach Churchy, we need you for a photo, please. And Coach Chris Goldberg in the back of Philly Lacrosse, just stand up and wave. He's kind of the mouthpiece for Philly Lacrosse in the area. Thank you so much for your articles and pressing the dime on this, and everybody getting home safe. Thank you so much.